In 2020, real-life play for the Pokemon TCG ended. To keep interest in the game alive, players from all around the world began hosting tournaments on PTCGO, the only option at the time for playing Pokemon cards online. It was a massive success with multiple tournaments drawing hundreds of people each week. And even now in 2022, you'll still find dozens of different tournaments to play in every month, each offering various prizes. Unfortunately, the Pokemon Company hated this. It was the players who kept competitive Pokemon TCG play going, not the people who actually made it. So, angered by this insubordination from the people who helped them reach $325 million in profits in 2021, and who helped them sell 9.1 billion Pokemon cards in 2021, they decided to create Pokemon TCG Live. This would be the ultimate punishment for all of those ungrateful heathens. For those unfamiliar, the Pokemon trading card game online was created over 10 years ago with the Pokemon Company acting as publisher. Direwolf Digital, who runs Eternal Card Game, is now the developer. Their role has been stripped down to nothing more than adding new cards every few months, while players have seen features like legacy tournaments and in-game microtransactions removed. Because PTCGO is so old and newer card games like Hearthstone and Magic Arena and Legends of Runeterra were miles ahead in terms of gameplay and appearance, many fans wanted a newer version, myself included. The Pokemon TCG is massively popular all around the world, but the digital client was years behind its competition. Well, after an initial leak in August 2021 from their own products no less, the Pokemon Company officially announced Pokemon TCG Live on September 20th, 2021. It would be a replacement for PTCGO, the original would be shut down, and it would launch in 2021. Well, as you can clearly see, that never actually happened. Let's revisit the timeline of events to give you a clearer picture. When Live was first announced, we were told it would be available on PC, Mac, Android, and iOS, with development handled in-house by the Pokemon Company. Additionally, PTCGO would go offline prior to the launch of Live, giving us a single unified digital TCG experience. According to the official FAQ, shutting down PTCGO provides a more optimal experience by merging all fans into one online game, offering a greater pool of people to digitally play the Pokemon TCG. The biggest thing that made Live different from PTCGO is the crafting system. Instead of paying through the nose for new cards, you could earn credits in-game and use them to craft any card you wanted. It came at the cost of removing trading from a trading card game, but I was never as bothered by that as some other people were. Simply because PTCGO's economy kinda sucks, so this was great. Unfortunately, the problems for Live were already starting. The first warning sign should have been the fact that the reveal trailer included Zacian V having a 30 times weakness to fire. I laughed it off thinking it was just an honest mistake. We were so naive back then. Looking back at the original press release, the Pokemon Company said Pokemon TCG Live will continue to be updated with new content and features following launch. Let's take a moment to dissect that. I'll give them a pass on the new content. The bare minimum is them adding new sets as they release, and while they've struggled with implementing the cards in a way that doesn't result in numerous bugs, and while we've received sets hours or even a day later than PTCGO, at least they've added new content. But new features? In the 7 months since the beta began, we've had 0 new features. It launched with 3 game modes and still has just 3 game modes, so that particular comment did not age well. Additionally, the Pokemon Company said at the time, trainers looking to preview the game prior to broad availability will be able to participate in the mobile soft launch in Canada and the global open beta for PCs and Macs later this year. This meant anyone around the world would be able to play Live on their PC or Mac in 2021, while those in Canada could access the mobile version. Seemed great, right? Well, this is where things started going downhill. For several weeks after the original announcement, the Pokemon Company was silent on Live. Based on the fact that Fusion Strike code cards said you could play Live today, it was safe to assume the new game would be out in early November and PTCGO would shut down at the end of October. But then, a month after Live was announced, the PTCGO developers revealed that Fusion Strike was coming to their game. This made absolutely no sense unless something bad was afoot. Also around that time, Top Deck Academy Season 2 was mysteriously delayed. The YouTube tutorial series was expected to feature Live, so this put even more fuel to a delay. Then finally, on November 4th, the Pokemon Company broke their silence and said Live was delayed to 2022. This was like 2 days before it was supposed to come out. Unfortunately, this pattern of horrible communication continues to this day. The calendar turned over to 2022 and we heard nothing. Then, after 2 full months of nothing, we finally got a whiff of TCG Live news from, of all places, PTCGO. PTCGO underwent maintenance to prepare for live, which was still undated. Again, they decided to go radio silent for another month. Then on February 16th, 3 months after our last official piece of news about live from the Pokemon Company, they told us live would be out on February 22nd for all platforms, except it would only be available in Canada. Oh well, finally, the wait was over. We'd finally be able to look down at Magic and Runeterra and Hearthstone players because we had the hottest new card game in the world. Assuming you forget the new Yu-Gi-Oh game that came out like a month before. But anyways, when the day of release arrived, every content creator, even those outside of Canada, patiently waited for live to launch. And waited. It was supposed to go live at noon, yet some had to wait until 2. Once it was fully out, we all succumbed to a shared psychosis and migrated our PTCGO accounts, assuming the game would be playable and PTCGO would shut down in a few weeks because we trusted the Pokemon Company. How stupid we were! On launch day, the iOS version was mysteriously missing despite the press release saying it would be out day 1. The Pokemon Company merely said it was coming soon. The next day, numerous players reported the game eating their codes and not rewarding packs or cards. So, just 3 days after the beta launch, code redemption went completely offline, meaning nobody could redeem codes or earn credits. Code redemption would ultimately remain offline for an entire week, while the iOS version was still MIA with no details on a concrete date. A week after the beta went live, I sent out a tweet talking about how I regretted my decision to migrate my PTCGO account to live. Between the creepy avatars, slow gameplay, constant bugs, and low player count, it just wasn't worth it. Other players voiced their displeasure and filled up the forums with their issues. Then on March 16th, players complained about the lack of communication from the developers, which received no response. However, the next day, the developers teased exciting news coming next week. Finally, a reason to be excited for the future of live. Well, there was never any exciting news. We got a patch with bug fixes. That's not interesting. And when pressed about what the exciting news was supposed to be, we received no response. And to make matters even funnier, on March 16th, Top Deck Academy Season 2 finally began. The entire season takes place within TCG Live, but the first few thumbnails only show PTCGO. So either the Pokemon Company didn't know Live existed, or they wanted to pretend like it didn't. Overall, March was a terrible month for Live, culminating in a mass exodus from every content creator. Andrew Mahone, the biggest PTCGO creator on the planet, called Live a failed project. Other big names spoke out against Live and returned to PTCGO. Because they'd migrated their accounts to Live, and demigrating isn't a thing, they had to start from scratch. So March sucked for Live. Surely April would get better, right? Nope. Aside from a bland hotfix, there was no update to Live in April to fix the myriad of different issues. The Lucario V-Star Premium Collection launched in early April, but you couldn't craft the card or even use it in Live because it was broken. It remained unplayable for over a month. The one good thing is that the iOS version finally released on April 19th, 2 months after the Pokemon Company said it would. But in true TCG Live fashion, players immediately began reporting their phones overheating and the battery draining super quickly while playing. I had actually abandoned Live in April as well, and when I checked Twitch on April 26th, not a single person was streaming it, while the PTCGO category was as populated as ever. TCG Live went from having every major content creator on February 22nd to literally 0 content creators 2 months later. After nearly 2 months of nothing, Pokemon TCG Live was finally updated again on May 24th, adding the new Astro Radiance set. And because the Pokemon Company hates Mexicans, Mexico was also added to the list of beta countries. That same day, the developers sent out a letter to the community. After the usual PR fluff, they said, while there is more work to do before the game is ready for global launch, we remain deeply committed to our goal of making Pokemon TCG Live a wonderful experience for you, our players. The limited beta was designed to give the community a voice in shaping Pokemon TCG Live, and we have learned a great deal since our rollout in Canada. Your feedback is critical to the development of Pokemon TCG Live as we continue to explore ways to evolve the game. After saying they'd release a survey in the coming weeks, the team ended the statement with, "We're just getting started with Pokemon TCG Live, and we look forward to cultivating a long-term relationship with our players and working with you on this journey." If you thought this would signal a 180 in development and communication, you'd be wrong. The newly updated FAQ for Live suggested that Tropical Beach, a very rare card that costs hundreds of packs on PTCGO, would never be craftable on TCG Live. We've still never received a true answer on this, but since you can't currently craft Tropical Beach in Live, it's one of only a handful of cards that are unavailable, and Pokemon Support has said a card like Champions Festival can only be redeemed in Live via a code card given out at the event. If you don't have Tropical Beach in your PTCGO account upon migration, well, you're screwed. Other issues with the May 24 update included Silene being utterly broken and Galarian Mr. Rime V attacking for 1 energy instead of 3. These cards were never banned and weren't fixed until July 27th, 2 months after launching. Yeah, not great. If you thought there was no way things could possibly get worse for TCG Live, you clearly weren't playing it in June. On June 2nd, the developers did a maintenance designed to fix an issue when migrating from PTCGO to TCG Live. Unfortunately, that completely broke matchmaking, resulting in hours-long waits for players. When I was streaming at that time, I'd have to restart the game upwards of 7 times in just 2 hours in order to find a match. And on June 3rd, instead of prioritizing fixes for all of the issues still prevalent in Live, the developers announced they'd instead decided to rebalance the economy. They said, "We want to take the opportunity to provide information regarding the Battle Pass decks and for not receiving credits for extra cards gained from these. We decided we wanted to balance the game economy for all players and not give an additional advantage to players who already have extensive card collections. Instead, extra credits are earnable in both the basic and premium tracks equally for all players after Tier 0. Please note that this also applies to decks awarded after completion of the tutorial." When I originally migrated to Live in February, I was given about 15,000 free credits because I owned 4 copies of most of the cards in the free starter decks. Now if you were to migrate a PTCGO account with 4 copies of every card, you'd receive 0 credits in Live, because punishing their most loyal players is apparently a good idea. June also marked the release of the new Pokemon GO set. The developers of PTCGO let their players know on June 13th that it would be available on June 30th. TCG Live devs told us on June 28th that it would be available on June 30th. Yeah, remember that lack of communication I said never improved? Now, this is where you need to prepare yourselves. It's hard to say if this was the darkest day for Live or if the week or 2 of unplayable matchmaking was, but it got so much worse. Okay. So, the developers of TCG Live launched the game with Brilliant Stars in February. Then 3 months later in May, Astral Radiance came out. Along the way, numerous cards had issues and took forever to get fixed, but there was never a time crunch. Pokemon GO was out about a month after Astral Radiance though. The developers had never dealt with an accelerated timeline, and it went worse than you can possibly imagine. The Pokemon GO update went out on June 28th. Despite the developers saying GO wouldn't be out until the 30th, the cards did show up on Live on the 29th. You could even craft them, except the art didn't load. I was so afraid of breaking Live that I waited until the 30th to do anything with GO. I loaded up the game that day, went live on stream, and prepared to test out some brand new decks. Then I got an invalid notification. Turns out, the developers failed to make Pokemon GO legal in any formats. It remained that way for an entire day. I booted up my stream the next day, Friday, July 1st, and was all prepared to announce my triumphant return to PTCGO because Live was so bad. Well, in the middle of what I thought would be my farewell TCG live stream, the developers pushed Pokemon GO live. It was over a day late, but it was here. I got everything in order and started playing. Not long after, I received a message that something interesting was afoot. Turned out, whatever the developers did to make Pokemon GO legal and standard also made expanded cards playable in standard. The most comical part about all of this is that it was the July 4th long weekend, so the devs basically wrecked the game, then pieced out for several days. But the icing on the cake is what happened on Saturday. A player discovered that you can build a deck with 7 standard cards and 53 expanded cards and enter a game in standard. After drawing your hand, TCG Live wouldn't place your prize cards. And because Live is coded really well, the game assumes you've taken all of your prize cards and you automatically win the game. This turned Live into the Wild West where it was instant win deck versus instant win deck, and it wasn't addressed until July 6th, so for several days you should play a deck that gave you an automatic win. Needless to say, I decided I was never leaving Live because this was the funniest, most saddest thing I'd ever witnessed. Oh, and my community also discovered that Charizard's ability from Pokemon GO stacked, meaning you could pair it with the milling Centiskorch and mill like 45 cards in one turn fairly easily. They fixed that about 5 days later. I wish I could say things kept going downhill like a Graveler being pushed off a mountain, but the Pokemon GO fiasco was like a Geodude's butt. Rock bottom. From that point, there was nowhere to go but up. They just preferred to move like a Slakoth instead of a Ninjask. At the end of July, the developers began doing weekly maintenance to fix matchmaking. Suspiciously, they did this right after a player told them they needed to do weekly maintenance to fix matchmaking. It sucks that Live is unplayable for about 8 hours one day every week, but matchmaking has never been better. Then on August 6th, the survey was finally sent out. Apparently, in the coming weeks meant 10.5 weeks, but who's counting? I spent over 30 minutes filling it out on stream. While a bunch of questions were nonsensical and had more to do with the TCG in general and not live, I was able to give them some of my honest opinions. You can watch the full video on my channel, but basically, live needs more game modes, a better economy, and just a complete overhaul. One of the points I made is that the Battle Pass needed to be extended past 70 levels, or at the very least let the Battle Pass reset when you finish it. They responded to this piece of feedback by removing 20 levels from the Lost Origin Battle Pass. Silver Tempest coming out in just 2 months definitely played a part in that decision, but it's still comical to have them go so far in the opposite direction. On August 8th, we were given another letter to the community. This time it showed off something truly amazing, a board update. They would be completely changing how live looked, with the biggest change being able to see bench Pokemon in full. No release date was given, but it was safe to assume it would be out in a month with Lost Origin. Well, you can guess what happened next. No communication from the developers, and when Lost Origin dropped, no board update. I had to go digging through the forums to find a brief comment from the Pokemon Company saying there's no ETA on the board. What was the point of giving us hope, only to snatch it away like a good dream being interrupted by an alarm clock? One of my favorite TCG Live moments came at Worlds this year. So, in September 2021, the Pokemon Company said PTCGO would be going offline later that year and Live would be the only game available. Fast forward 11 months later to August 22, and PTCGO is the game the Pokemon Company used for gameplay demonstrations at Worlds, not Live. Adding another scoop onto this crap sundae, a gold patch of the Pete code was given out at Worlds. Despite an automatic message on their stream saying to redeem the code in TCG Live, you couldn't actually do that and had to use the code redeem website, which didn't work for most players either. So not even the Pokemon Company could get a custom code to work properly in Live. Also at Worlds, the Kalos network was able to speak with some of the people behind TCG Live. After wading through the lineup of hundreds of people at the packed booth, totally featured front and center and not stuffed in some dark corner, they were able to get some answers. For instance, the team saw the content creator feedback as very useful, if not brutal, and new people have been added to the team who have prior card game experience. Usually you add good developers to your team before launching a game, but this is Live we're talking about. As for why we have creepy avatars instead of a companion Pikachu or Eevee similar to what you see in Runeterra, apparently it comes down to licensing. It seems like they only have access to the cards and can't use anything from the rest of the franchise, likely because 4 or 5 different companies have a claim in the series. And as for why it's fully free to play with no microtransactions, they wanted it to be very accessible, except you still have to buy codes from third-party sites to boost your account. So instead of taking money people are wanting to spend, the Pokemon Company wants to direct you to strangers on the internet. Being the top TCG live streamer in the world, one of the most common questions I get is when is it actually coming out? Since the Pokemon Company works in the shadows, we're left to speculate. Based on new information about Team Challenge Season 4, Live probably won't come out until 2023. In the original FAQ for PTCGO shutting down, the Pokemon Company specifically mentioned the Team Challenge, which was taking place in PTCGO. We knew Live would remain in beta until Season 3 was done, so speculation pointed towards a September launch for Live. But then when Season 4 of the Team Challenge was announced, and Season 4 would extend into early 2023, that gave us evidence of Live being pushed even further. Again, it's still just speculation, but the Pokemon Company hasn't done anything to answer our questions. Do you know who has answered a bunch of questions fans have about a popular card game? The developers of Legends of Runeterra. On September 8th, they gave their players a roadmap detailing everything happening in the rest of 2022 and even some details about early 2023. TCG Live players, meanwhile, found out about Lost Origin 2 days prior to launch. So we don't even know what's happening next week, let alone next month. Speaking of Lost Origin, this may seem minor to some of you, but Pokemon TCG Live received the brand new set 6 hours after PTCGO. We're supposed to be the fancy new game, yet the busted old game is getting new content first. Make that make sense. True to form, Lost Origin introduced some bugs that severely impacted gameplay. But in a rare twist, the development team fixed the 2 worst ones within 24 hours. They actually care about the game, finally! While the development team finally started to show some care for Live, the Pokemon Company themselves did not. Each time a new set is released, they send out a newsletter giving everyone 3 free packs of that set. The main newsletter for Astral Radiance included TCG Live branding, but for both Pokemon GO and Lost Origin, TCG Live is nowhere to be found in the newsletters. It's like the company is actively trying to cover up the fact that Live exists, or they forgot. One of the two. For the last piece of news, in Live's first year, the beta expanded to 3 new countries: France, Germany, and Italy. They joined Canada, Mexico, Australia, and New Zealand. With this boost to the player base, standard ranked matchmaking is at its best. Several of those new players have complained about bugs that we've been experiencing for months, but it's still nice having something to get excited about for once. They're adding more countries, which hopefully means everything will soon be perfect because they don't want to offend any Europeans, right? Just kidding. If the Pokemon Company didn't want to offend anyone, Live never would have been released to the public in the first place. And that leads us to today, September 20th. I made this video a few days beforehand, so if they announced something this morning past me didn't know about it. So what exactly went wrong with Pokemon TCG Live? The developers never really say anything about anything, which means it's wild theory time. Based on the evidence, it's pretty clear what happened. A higher up at the Pokemon Company didn't ask the developers when the game would be ready. They just said it will be ready in November 2021 because they'd already rebranded all the code cards for Fusion Strike. To reach this deadline, the devs cut corners in every aspect, which had negative effects to the game still felt a year later. And because Pokemon is so stubborn, they've refused to change the code cards back. So even though you can't play TCG Live in the United States, the codes you find in physical packs still say you can play Live today. TCG Live has just been terrible decision after terrible decision. There was no good reason for it to come out when it did. The Pokemon Company should have released Live alongside Scarlet and Violet base set in early 2023. They could have advertised it as a brand new game for a brand new generation. Then they could have focused on standard play only, and once that was perfect, added expanded. Instead, they gave us a mess, and instead of blowing up the building and rebuilding it from scratch, they decided to try and clean it up while the roof was leaking during a thunderstorm. And if TCG Live was going to be this terrible, why not just add crafting to PTCGO? PTCGO, despite its age, works and has tens of thousands of players. The only major issue is that it costs a ton of money to get your hands on the newest cards. Add crafting, problem solved. Instead, they thought it would be a good idea to cancel PTCGO and make Live. You see how that's gone so far. I mean, the game's not even fully out yet a year after they said it would be out in a couple of months. Put simply, if I'd known TCG Live would still be in beta 7 months later, I would not have migrated from PTCGO. If I had known only 7 countries would be in the beta 7 months later, I would not have migrated. If I had known Expanded would still be a nothing format 7 months later, I would not have migrated. And if I had known that the developers still had no idea when new features would be added or when a release date would happen, I would not have migrated. I've rambled on long enough in this video, so if you want to hear me complain further about TCG Live, follow me on Twitch. Or if you have any questions, ask them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer. If you're still interested in downloading Live, which I don't say you shouldn't do, it's definitely in the best place it's ever been, which isn't saying much, but if you want to play it, just don't migrate your account. But again, if you are interested, I also have a starter guide that should help you maximize your first few weeks in the game. Thanks for watching.